So, what do you consider the difference between soul food and Southern food?
Wow, that's a good question. Um, it depends. The truth is that it's very similar. Soul food, fried chicken, black eyed peas, collard greens, cornbread, potato salad. We grew up as an African American family. We grew up eating those things. It was a tradition. But then later on, when we came back to the South, just with 2010, I realized that white people consider that to be staples for them too, black eyed peas, cornbread. So, so I don't know if there is much of a difference, except for I guess it depends on on who claims it. I guess.
Okay. Okay, so when you were growing up, what would you and your family eat?
We ate a lot of what was grown in the fields, like corn, collard greens, and the cornbread, which was actually ground from the corn that we grew. So the cornmeal, they made the cornmeal from the corn that we grew. We would eat. My mom would make a lot of rutabagas, um, cabbage. She did make. She did make black eyed peas. She did make fried chicken, but those were more like for special occasion. The black eyed peas more like a daily staple. Lima beans, but the fried chicken, that was more like a Sunday dinner. We would eat cornbread and buttermilk and cornbread together. And though that was in lean time, so we didn't have a whole lot. Sometimes we'd have sweet potatoes with that. But as children, we enjoyed it and appreciated all of it.
And then what would you say we ate a lot when I was a kid?
It was
Like with
different.
like Auntie Susan and like all of them, like that type of stuff.
Oh, okay, you mean in the family?
Yeah.
Um, when you talk about Auntie Susan, after my mom passed, Auntie Susan was the cook in the family, and a lot of the family gatherings were centered at her home. So, um,
So I guess it's different.
no, it would be very similar. In other words, she carried on the traditions.
Okay.
She carried on the traditions, and when you say we ate at her house, it was mostly for holidays. There would be turkey, there would be ham. I had my first taste of, I think it was fried turkey
Hmm.
that they called it, that Uncle James made. There was potato salad. Uncle Frank was good at that, so he would make that. Um, New people that entered the household. One of the my sisters in laws, she made cornbread. I guess they called it hot water cornbread, where she cooked it on the stove on the in a skillet. Mac and cheese, of
Hmm.
course, we can't forget the mac and cheese. That's a huge staple when you talk about Southern versus soul food. But mac and cheese, especially the way that we make it, is a staple. There was peach cobbler, and Auntie Susan was good at baking, so she would make all of the cakes that I remember eating as a child living in the South, living in Alabama. Coconut cake, caramel cake, of course, chocolate cake. My mother made the best chocolate cake from scratch. Oh, it was the best. Um, and the most notable and the most valuable thing about soul food was sharing it with family. And as a child, that's what I remember is enjoying soul food as a large family. I came from a large family. There were 11 of us, my parents and then the 9 children. And so just used to experiencing soul food, and then when with family gatherings, that was a very important part of the soul food experience, and it was an experience. If you're gonna call it, if you're gonna break it into a cultural moray, then it's definitely the experience that defines what soul food is.
And then since we eat a lot differently now than we did when I was younger, what would you probably eat now?
We've become very health conscious, and so we experiment a lot with different types of healthy food. And you, for example, you like to bring in new recipes. So right now, for my health, I'm doing a what they call an electric food diet, and that's to restore the my hormones and the body chemistry to its healthy state. Before that, I was doing the I forget what they call it, but it's a special diet for people who have chronic diseases. So there was that. Um, of course, we like to eat. We have our favorites like tacos, Mexican food, burritos. Kale is one of my favorite things that I didn't even had never heard of as a child, but something that I discovered um, very recently. I love lamb, something that you
No.
don't. What do you? Let's see. What do we? Meat. We use ground beef a lot, but we
Mhm.
use it
Well, more specifically
in
to soul
recipes.
food.
Soul
Like
food.
what
Oh,
what we eat now.
okay, soul food. Still love my cornbread. I still love eating cabbage. Um, Still love black eyed peas, lima beans. I don't eat fried food. We don't eat fried food anymore. Um, but there were some things that I kind of forgot about uh, in my family history. But my mom used to make fried pork chops. She would make fried liver, um, or they would say smothered because it was liver and gravy with rice. And so yeah, those are things that I've forgotten about. But that's what we eat now as far as food. So that yes, we have evolved from eating the fried foods or the foods. I still eat buttermilk and cornbread. I still love to eat buttermilk and cornbread mixed together. I still love to eat cabbage, but for the most part, the fried foods are out. Um, and I'm reluctant to say this because of the stereotyping behind it, but I love to eat watermelon. Watermelon was one of those things that we ate a lot of as children because it was easy to grow, and we actually grew it in this huge field that was across the street from our home. And so yeah, we'd get our big bellies from eating a lot of watermelon, and I still love to eat watermelon. Um, and peaches, things like that we ate a lot of as a child. Plums, we would eat wild plums, and we'd eat blackberries that we'd pick from the muscadines, that we'd pick from the woods. Cherries, that grew wild. I remember when we were kids, we actually made our own wine from some cherries. It was my big brother's idea. We actually let it ferment and we made homemade wine. Um, mm, yeah, that's about it.
Were there any like drinks that we always had whenever?
Um, there was once upon a time we would drink soda, and we just drank soda just like everybody else. Coca-Cola mainly. Us kids, like, oh, orange jade. When we were kids, my mom would give us orange aid. It was so good. Orange aid was so good. And we would, my mom didn't really give us Kool-Aid much. She didn't give us Kool-Aid much. I kind of adopted it for a while. I would make it, but it didn't last very long because of its unhealthy, because it was unhealthy. um, of course, we drank a lot of milk. Milk was important for us, and buttermilk. Buttermilk was one of my favorite things to drink. But there wasn't really anything specific that stands out as something that we drank, except for the sodas, just like everybody else.
Okie dokie.
Anything else? Good, okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.